So I appreciate all of you guys coming to this special meeting. I know we're going to have light attendance. We tried to find some other times, but this was still the best time. Let me tell you what I'd like to make sure we accomplish today, because we have only a small subset of the committee. We'd like to walk through, and I'm going to walk through a timeline for providing criteria to the mayor. So this is the start of us, and we really want this focused strictly on only developing criteria, because we've got to get through this. We've got a deadline. The bottom line is we need to develop criteria. We want to solicit input and send a draft criteria. Whatever gets produced tonight, we want to put it in draft form and send it out to the rest of the committee and really push. Hey, Mickey, come on in. How are you? I'm good. Mickey, I want to make sure that I saw a phone message. I saw a phone on your number on my phone, and then I called it back, and there was no voicemail, and then I heard a lot of talking. So I think you pocket dialed me. So I want to make sure that we're okay.
We're okay.
Okay, that we're okay. So anyway, so I'm going through what we're doing today, Mickey, since we only have a subset of the committee, because I know everybody there's conflicts. So what we want to do is work live on getting a draft of what we think are important criteria that we send to the mayor. Then whatever gets produced here, we will send draft criteria to all CCA members for comment and provide a deadline of October 23rd, because we really want to have you all and look at a final review and approval of criteria at the October 26th meeting, which is in 2 weeks, which is our regular meeting. And then we forward the criteria to Mayor Hancock on Friday the 27th. And then there's Albus Brooks has a half-hour meeting at 9:30 every Tuesday morning, right before Mayor Council with the mayor. He would like for the CAC to select 5 member representatives to go with him to meet with the mayor to discuss the criteria. So we have a flat-out deadline of October 31st to take advantage of a meeting with the mayor. So, and Alan Salazar has agreed to give us another week, so we have another meeting, and to look at this, to look at it for the 27th. So that is what we're trying to do today. We gave you some starting suggestions to start discussion. First of all, there's any questions on the timeline? On that? Okay. And I think what we will have to do, well, we could do this on the 26th. We could select the 5 members on the 26th. And we make sure that everybody understands that that's happening. And be able, you all will select 5 members. Yes, the committee will select 5 members. That is Albus Brooks' request to go in and do that, to meet with the mayor and him at 9:30 on Tuesday, October 31st. What we did is...
you didn't make it clear whether people should come in costume or not.
You know, I was almost going to say that, AE. I was almost going to say that, or trick or treat, right? I mean, you know, little candy. So, but I decided I better stay away. So let's just remember that the Mayor Hancock will appoint 8 members of the NWC Authority Board. 2 of the appointees, 1 voting and 1 non-voting, must be residents of GES, and they must be residents. The CAC will meet with the mayor to discuss a list of criteria and the appoints. Our first thought suggestion is that you divide up criteria. Hello, come on in.
Hi.
Drew, I know you really want to be at the other meeting, so I'm sorry. We did the doodle poll, and this one still won. Huh? It's actually your meeting, Drew. You're part of the committee. All right, let me go through for Vern and Nancy. Come on, Nancy, sit at the table.
I am.
Oh, good, thank God.
Since there's nobody else in the gallery.
And Drew. Yes, of course.
Maria, I have a question.
Yep, Susan.
So is this criteria limited to the 2 residents? Or
No.
are they also going to make criteria for all 8?
Will you hold your horses? You're getting ahead of me.
Oh, okay.
So to give you guys a quick reset, okay? if you look at your agenda, we're only going to talk about criteria for appointments for the mayor tonight, because quite candidly, we've got a lot to do to be able to get through this. So what we're going to do is we're going to work live. And Michael, since I have to leave, you're going to help out, right?
Yep.
We're going to work live so we can create a document tonight. As you guys are thinking of ideas, we're just going to put them up there so that we can create a draft document that we can send out to the balance of the CAC by Monday for comment and review, and then get additional comments back to us and Liz on the 23rd. And then on our meeting on the 26th, which is our regular standing meeting, we will approve the final criteria. We will then transmit it to the mayor on the 27th. And on October 31st, Albus has his meeting with the mayor, and he wants us to select 5 representatives of this committee. So remember, that will exclude, again, to make sure everybody's clear, it's only committee members. So while DMNS and History Colorado and CSU and us are here, we're just resources of facilitators. So you all will have to pick 5 people to go with Albus to meet with the mayor on October 31st. Okay? And that's the meeting for the mayor to be able to do that. So our suggestion, so Susan, you were getting ahead of me. AE did mention, do we have to come in costume on October 31st? Since it's Halloween. Yeah, it was a question. I said, I don't know yet. We will ask. I'm sure the mayor would be fine with it. Are we doing just criteria for the 2 members that are citizens members? Are we doing criteria for everyone? I think Terrence and I and Liz's recommendations is that you do criteria for everyone, but you bifurcate the criteria. Because I think it is a little different if you're the GES resident and whether you're the broader at-large member. So I think you should, in fact, do criteria for both sets of categories. The mayor has 8 members that he appoints.
I thought it was 7.
It's 8. 8 includes the non-voting member.
Okay.
That's in the framework agreement that got added,
Okay.
right? So it's really
So that
8.
makes 12, but only 11 voting, because you always want an odd number.
Right, correct. That's what we went through, right. That was, I think, AE's suggestion when she called the fact that if there was no backup to one of the community, if the community was not.
It's a backup, that's
Right. So but the mayor appoints that thing. So what you need to know that officially today, the National Western Board appointed Pat Grant and Paul Andrews to be their 2 representatives. And Colorado State University, Jocelyn, I hope I'm not taking your thunder, only because Amy texted me last week. The Board of Governors officially appointed Tony Frank and Amy Parsons to be on the authority board. I think there was some thought that there should be 1 Board of Governors member from Colorado State University, and then either Tony or Amy. And what Amy, and I'm meeting with Amy tomorrow, what Amy transmitted to me was the Board of Governors felt really strongly that it should be the chancellor and the executive chancellor of the university system to be on the authority. So obviously, from the equity partners, it's the 2 highest people in the organization that are on it. So I just wanted you to know that, to make sure you know that. So we now have to work on the 8 members. So we just basically started throwing some ideas out, community involvement idea. I think the question becomes, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with criteria for the GES members, or do you want to start with criteria with the broader members?
I need a clarification.
Uh-huh.
You said something about the at-large, the at-large person and the GES person. I don't quite, you were talking, while you were talking, you said something about the criteria for the at-large versus the GES.
Well, the at-large, I meant the at-large mean the non-specific resident member.
Well, there's the voting and there's the non-voting member
Right.
that are, I don't think, the at-large concept is, I don't think, part of it.
No.
There's the voting and
Okay,
the
so
non-voting.
I was not articulate enough.
Okay, I just wanted to.
I refer those 2 as the GES representatives. The at-large, what I would call an at-large member, are the other 6 that the mayor appoints where he has no residential requirement.
I just didn't know what the distinction was.
It's the residential requirement. I guess you could call it the non-resident versus the resident member.
But it doesn't necessarily prohibit.
There is absolutely nothing in the document to prohibit the mayor of Denver, okay, to appoint somebody else from this community.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to raise, which in fairness of transparency, everybody else is doing. I mean, Alan Salazar told me there's already like 100 people who've called to want to be on this authority.
Called who?
The mayor's office. He has a person who does boards and commissions and whatever. They've inquired about it. So one of the things I think you might want to think about is, I know that the National Western has been asked for input, okay? More in terms of categories of people versus specific people, and I think so is CSU. Okay, for example, let me give you an example. Should you have somebody in the authority who has experience in construction and building and developing? Should there be a developer on the authority board? Now, that person would have to make sure that they could never do any development in this area, because that would be a conflict of interest. But should there be a development? So that's the kind of input they're asking. One of the things I think we need to, we want to make sure that we put on the table, do you all want to, I mean, I don't think, it could be a GES resident, so you don't have to be on this committee to be appointed, right? I mean, it's a broad GES resident. Do you all want to forward names of individuals with some bios that you think, particularly outside of this committee, of people who might want to serve or not serve? That is up to you guys. I'm just putting it out there.
So when you talk about resident, does that mean they have to live here? Or could
That
they
is
have a
correct.
business?
That is correct. Just for the record, I made that argument a couple of months ago, that I think when you go down the line, you may want to change it at some point, but it was decided, you guys decided that it was resident. So that means you have to have a physical, so here's how I think the mayor's office would interpret that. Your residence, your driver's license says your residence to vote is how you determine residency.
Well, I hope it's not the driver's license, but something else, or lease or something.
Physical address.
Colorado ID or physical, or,
Physical address.
Well, that
Right.
can be determined, but I just want to make one comment about this.
hi Amanda.
This- Good. This residence thing. I want to convey the comment here that I made to you when we talked about this, that at the time, there was no, we decided that.
Right.
I think we had no choice almost. There was no guarantees.
Correct.
In any
Yes.
level of this, that there were going to be residents on this authority board. And so I really think we made a decision on an unequal playing field because of the issues of, there was only one representative at a time, and that's where we had the conversation, which had to do with, yes, could we put on the table ideas about criteria for the entire authority, and that's where we got the memo back from
Correct.
the mayor saying that he was going to.
He wants your input.
Upload requirements that the GES be very well, the neighborhood plan, but that wasn't really it. So I think even though we know that residents could be, and I appreciate what you said, but I want to recognize really, it wasn't because we were
Right.
stupid or anything, it's
No.
because the only way for us to guarantee that at that time was to put that there. I was not happy about it for the same reasons, but I think it was a sound decision given the limitations.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I wasn't being, but to Mickey's
Because
question,
instead of saying us wanting to change that, one of the other ways it could change is that the criteria for the board could be that one or two of those six had to be residents. That's another direction it could
Right.
change.
and
Anyway,
there's
difficult,
clearly
you know.
nothing, there's nothing stopping you all from also recommending to the mayor that one of his six be maybe a business owner
Yeah, I think
in
we
the
all-
area.
Yeah,
So-
maybe we can get to it.
I just think so. So why don't we start on the GES community and what you think are, and just literally throw out ideas. It doesn't have to be, we could, this is a work in progress. We're going to do it dynamically. Then we'll put all this together. We'll send it out. You guys can think about it. But for the GES residents, both for the voting and the non-voting, okay, what do you think, what criteria do you want to see the mayor consider as they're looking at resumes for it? Or of names of people in consideration. Drew?
I'll just throw out there.
Do we need this, or can we all hear each
Can
other?
I just,
Let's try it without.
I can shout.
Yeah, we can shout.
Everybody just needs to
Can you
speak
hear me
up
now?
so I can hear.
Okay. I think there should be, and this maybe is not a hard requirement, but some community involvement. I think
Frank,
that
do
if
we?
you haven't at least been aware of the issues in these neighborhoods, and there's so many that, I don't know how to spell that out, but just say pulling somebody that maybe has never been to a meeting or gone to something, I think how do we know that that person kind of knows what's going on? And we could go through the list of everything going on here, not just National Western, but neighborhood plans, et cetera. I mean, there's so much going on that I think there should be some record of having been involved or participated. And that could even be a nonprofit person who's had meetings, I just throw out focus points or something. But, I worry that somebody that doesn't know what's going on
Well, you're not,
is maybe
May I?
not.
Go
What's
for it.
that?
Yeah, go for it.
I don't want to get bogged down in this. We got a few days to get it done. I have enough confidence in the mayor as that he's not going to appoint someone that doesn't have some knowledge.
John, frankly, I don't know if I have that same confidence.
Well, that's why we're here.
So that's why I made
Yeah.
the suggestion.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't want to get bogged down in carrying this thing down to the, we submit some names, and they're going to pick them anyway. So we send 20 names in, he's going to pick 2 out of 20.
Oh, but I thought we were talking about criteria.
We're talking about
Yeah.
criteria first.
Yeah.
I do think he wants criteria.
Okay.
Not
So we
names.
need to
So
focus on
residents-
criteria.
Resident is
Let's,
criteria.
well, resident is already in the framework
Yeah.
agreement, so that's a legal requirement, okay? So I think we need to talk about criteria. I actually agree with Drew that I think some form that you have been involved in the community,
I
it
agree.
may be in different ways. It could be whatever, but there demonstrates that there's some involvement, whatever. I would also say to you, for example, time. You need some ability for them to have capacity to participate.
Could we?
Yeah.
Could I make a procedural suggestion?
Yep.
Just to break the ice? I'd be grateful if we could just go around the table and have everybody say a couple things that they feel that, because I don't want it to be like we just keep
Right.
coming back to that.
Right.
And, just a couple things they feel is important.
Start.
Well, I'll just repeat what I've already said, which is I feel like it would be, I would like to see somebody who's been in the neighborhood at least 3 years, I don't care if it's a renter or a homeowner, that has plans to stay for that 5-year period, and that is, if, and I don't want to, but I would prefer it be somebody that has children and has children in the public school system. That would be my preference.
Okay.
Either at Garden Place or Swansea. And
Okay.
maybe Bruce Randolph.
Vern? You're next.
Well, that was quick.
We can go any direction
Okay,
too.
I just had a couple of things I was thinking in my mind. I think this person should at least have about at least a 10-year area of time within the community and be there so much a part of that, because I think it takes at least that much to really understand the flavor of and the needs of the GES communities. And I think that would be one of the main things. The other one would be a willingness to commit for at least a 5-year period to this position. Because we're dealing with this now, there's this whole thing which really makes me somewhat uneasy. Kelly Lee's situation, okay? We're dealing with Kelly Lee getting through this whole thing, and all of a sudden, poof, he's gone. Okay, how many people will we keep going through? And from a community standpoint, I would like to see someone that's going to be able to have that stick-to-itiveness.
You want to build some institutional history.
Yes, exactly. So there's just a couple.
Those are great. Did you get the, Nancy?
Criteria, or whatever they do for submitting, I'd like to see somebody submit like their statement of commitment and their statement of, how do I say this? How they view the GES community. And how they view the GES community in relation to the National Western and you know, the community partnership with National Western. So I think it's important to find out people's viewpoints and interests in GEF.
Drew?
This is all good. I think
Great.
that, you know, we've said somebody that I think has lived here and has some record, as I said, I maybe put that down, some record of participation. But I think also that they exhibit some kind of understanding of the many and deep issues that these neighborhoods face, and looks, I think I'll leave it there.
Got it. John?
Obviously a resident, for at least 5-10 years, knowledgeable of the pertinent issues facing the community today, possibly involvement in past issues. Somebody's got to be able to tell the difference between what counts for residents and what counts for agencies, nonprofits that are working in the area, and there's a clear difference there. Sometimes they're parallel, but there's still a clear difference, and that has to be conveyed for that appointment.
Residency, that's obvious, somewhere 3 to 5 years, maybe leaning more towards 5. Would love to see these 2 representatives, one perhaps being from Globeville and the other one being from Elyria Sponsia. So being a little more intentional about geographic location for the voting and non-voting member. Also, as far as the participation and the interest, and that's hard to assess. But maybe something, definitely them expressing their level of commitment, but more importantly, as a community reps, how they're going to disseminate the information and get the feedback back to this group from the community. I would love to see something like really, because everybody likes to say we represent the community, but how are you really doing that, and how are you getting everybody's voice?
So a statement that would...
When appropriate, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Armando?
To be very simple, you know, the statement or mission, whatever you want to demonstrate.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Sure, to me, it's very simple. Whatever you want to demonstrate your involvement has to be measurable. If it ain't measurable, oh, I'm a landowner, I rent some property out, so I'm engaged. Well, no, to me, that's not engagement. What did you do? Did you go pick up some trash? Okay, well, how much? 2 or 3 trash cans full? Has to be measurable. And then you have to be able to demonstrate that your mission statement or statement how you the vision with the future of this community is what you'd like to see it go in terms of forward, and how does that mesh? I mean, when you apply for zoning, they ask you those simple questions. What's the neighborhood plan? What are you doing with your piece of property? How does that integrate? How does that fit into the neighborhood? Well, maybe it doesn't. Or maybe this is an area of change. How do you see those different changes? Because what I'm going to say is going to be different than anybody else in there. But the key thing is, what have you done that's measurable? Oh, I brought some toys to the kids. Big deal. Did you bring some computers? Something to stimulate the mind, not something to play with? You know, to me, those are different things. But however they want to demonstrate that, you know, maybe they have a different way, a different way of how to motivate, have an impact on.
Okay. Mickey?
Oh, I think communication is something that's critical and hasn't been talked about. So
I agree.
that leads us to the question, do we want someone from this group who basically can communicate the ideas that are happening here? I think that's kind of critical. If they're not on this group, I think they need to be on this group. And they need to have not just the activities in the community, they need to basically have voiced and been involved in terms of communicating and getting ideas and transmitting ideas. I think the other one is really someone who's innovative, someone who can think globally. I mean, we really are talking about local, and I think the person needs to be able to do both, to be able to think more broadly as well as knowing the community, which implies a little bit of knowledge of urban design or in terms of what's happening internationally, et cetera. So those are criteria that I think are good.
That's a good idea. Larry? You good? Yeah. David?
I've got to agree with Mondo. It's got to be measurable, what you've done. I would like to see a resident be here 15 or 20 years and not just work here for 5 or 10 or 15 years. That has actually lived here and participated in all aspects of the communities. You know, the churches, the schools, cleanups, you know, and also be part of the neighborhood plan from the very beginning till the end. You know, that's very important, and the same thing been associated with this project from the beginning. You know, we're close to it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
This is great. AE? Oh,
Did we have Jocelyn say that?
CSU's got 2 seats at the table.
I'm just in agreement with waiting the length of time toward more years. So all things being equal between candidates, I would definitely agree that it would be better to have the people, the ideal candidate be in the neighborhood longer. And also preferably have some progeny, daughter, sons, great-grandchildren, whatever. I kind of want it to be people that are aware that learning happens at all ages. So, because this is an educational opportunity in every respect, and I feel like the people who come on this board have to be able to talk and work toward that type of priority. So I want to throw out my 3 years and join with the 4 or 5 people that say.
So what about if we...
One other thing, if I may finish. One other thing is, I would also say it's okay if we wait a little less for the alternate, for the non-voting member, but that we have the criteria for the voting seat be the longest possible residency.
So do you want to open up by doing a, like...
May I?
Okay.
If we're gonna do criteria, it should apply to both, because the other non-voting member may have to take that voting member's place.
If that,
So
yeah, that's
that
fine.
person should be
That's an
just as qualified and able as the actual appointee.
Can I respond directly to that? 'Cause that thinking I understand, and in one way I agree with it. The other thing, though, is one of the disadvantages, which I feel could possibly be corrected over time with us not having 2, is that we don't get to mix up a reasonable and broad set of criteria. And that's part of what we'd be accomplishing with that. And so in that regard, if we did have 2, there would be a broader potential. So there's 2 ways to think about it, both of which make sense.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is too about criteria, I mean, this is for the mayor to consider. It might not have to be hard and fast. You know, I don't think the mayor, if we say 10 years, the mayor probably wouldn't appoint somebody with 3 years.
That's what waiting is.
Yeah.
You could start with the minimum. You could say, we think the criteria ought to be that they ought to live in the community a minimum of 7 years or 5 years.
I think it would be great to come to, I would go at least 5 myself.
Oh, yeah, I think you got to go at least 5.
Well, I want everybody to say what
Yeah,
they
right.
feel that they, I don't know if it's right or wrong, I want to see what people think.
Okay. Drew?
I was just going to say, I think the intention of someone raising children here, be a parent or grandparents, that's very good, because that shows that they really have an interest in the future and that they're bringing up children in these neighborhoods. But I think one of the things that just the pressures of raising children, which I don't have, I don't have them, so I'm able to go to a lot of meetings. So it's very, I guess where I'm going is, it's very difficult for a parent, especially the smaller the children are, to come to meetings and kind of participate and know what's going on. I mean, I have a neighbor, and she's got 4 kids. She also works 2 jobs, and I've tried to say, can you come to this meeting? Can you come? She's like, there's no time. So that's kind of the struggle you know, I think the intention is really good. If we could find somebody that fulfills both, but you're really it's pretty hard. Like Armando is obviously doing, you know, he's doing it very well.
Yeah, and I get backlash from my wife, she wants to move out of the neighborhood. My response is, why can't we make the neighborhood better?
Say that again, Armando, I couldn't hear you.
No, I was just responding to Drew's comment about bringing kids in the neighborhood. And my wife, her response is that we should move out. I said, why should we move out? We'll just make the neighborhood better. That's my response. And that's why I'm here.
And I want to, yeah, if I want to respond to that directly too, because I think, I'm trying to figure out how to say this very diplomatically. Because I have many years of seeing people with children being excluded specifically because the organization didn't move toward making it an even playing field. So I think it's incumbent upon, and this is a whole other area we don't have on the list that I want to comment on, but it doesn't have to be through this committee. I think the board of directors, this board has an obligation to provide the support that has not been provided, and it has the opportunity with the resources. I think the opposite would be true because it's so imperative. It's not just the kids thinking towards it, it's the fact that you have an investment in and direct experience with being the parents of children and how they learn and how they engage and what the opportunities are that can turn obstacles into enrichments. That is a very dynamic thing, and it doesn't mean somebody who doesn't have children can't offer these insights. But I would say let's, on another topic, discuss how people are supported, either by there being a stipend for in-home childcare, a facility for the people to bring kids, scheduling the meetings on the National Western Center property at a time when there's activities. There's lots of creative ways we can even play the field. So I just like to keep but I also want to say, I think the concept of weighting things is very good in a situation like this where the mayor's going to have to make an appointment based on the whole constellation of criteria. I would weight heavily in favor of people that have children actively or grandchildren actively, and I would weight heavily in 5 years minimum, maybe 7 years. So, but none of it is, we understand the mayor can do what he wants to do, but I'd weight it so that there's no litmus test.
Okay.
I personally don't know if there should be criteria about children. I mean, that kind of either includes or excludes some people, and do we want to do that? If somebody's...
That would be a weighting, yeah, that we can solve it by weighting.
Susan?
I think if you specify families, you're going to get in trouble.
A little louder, please, Susan.
I'm afraid by specifying with children or without children, you're going to run afoul of the civil rights laws that preclude discrimination on familial status. So
I think there's-
that's just
Sorry.
beware.
I think the emphasis on how long you live here is going a little bit overboard. What have you done while you live here?
Right.
And, you know, are you in business? What have you done to improve the community? Part of it is community things, but part of it is just somebody who's knowledgeable, who you know, we don't have any business, you know, we say it's a resident, but you want a resident who understands the business and the people who are in the community. I mean, I just don't want to suddenly 10 years will qualify you
Right.
and it doesn't make any difference as to what you know or how you've made a difference in the community. I mean, that's a key thing.
I agree.
about it.
That's a good point.
So in real time, I would suggest the wording, the emphasis on how long combined with what have you done in the community, because it's all a matter of, instead of versus. Because these are, I think that's a valid, I mean, somebody's been here 20 years.
Yeah, somebody could live here 20 years and never do
They've done
anything.
nothing.
I don't even know that we...
I don't even know the community
But
well.
it's a good, I don't think it's mutually exclusive, but I think that's good.
I'd like to say something, that people share, state what they've done in leadership, and it doesn't have to be within the community too. They may have in their work life, in their church life, in their social life, that they have been in a position of leadership, organization.
Civic engagement.
Working on community boards or something, so I think a demonstration of leadership would, is helpful.
Okay.
You know, I listen to, and I agree that we need to have this type of person that's a resident that really kind of can communicate the real feel of the entire community. And on the other side too, I'm looking at the type of project that you're beginning to get engaged in here. And this is a job. This is a serious freaking job, guys. Okay? This ain't no game. And, you know, we want maybe the best of both worlds, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't get that. But we got to come up with some kind of way to have a person that when he sits on these boards and they come up with critical path schedules, and some of you guys know what I'm talking about on this, and there's decisions that have to be made, and impactful decisions, and very complicated decisions. You got to have somebody that's going to be able to speak to that and have a strong voice to it, not just accept what the overall group is putting forward. And it scares me because if we focus too much on just a resident or a community member, and I'm not saying that we don't need that, but what I am saying is that we have to be very careful that this person can stand up and deal with the issues that are going to come up with, you know, a $100 million question or a $100 million decision. And these are things that, you know, needs to be taken into account. Now, you know, one of the things that I was just thinking of, and I'm just throwing this out there, maybe you have one person that is basically the resident and fits that category for the community. Then you have this other person, they may not have a seat at the table, or they're an alternate, or whatever the hell you want to call it, okay? But then that other person has the skills of working projects like this, and together they complement each other in reference to the decisions that should be made on this board.
So there should be a yeah, okay, that's a good point.
So, you know, it's just something to maybe think about, because, you know, we're taking a step to a lot bigger area, I think, than a lot of people.
Yeah, you don't want to,
realize.
I mean, not to be facetious, and Jocelyn, I'll pick on you guys for a minute. You don't want somebody on this board who'll get intimidated that the president of one of the largest land
Absolutely.
grants in the state,
Yeah.
or in the region, is sitting on the board, and if you
Yeah.
question him or disagree with him, you want somebody who's got an ability to say, gee, Dr. Frank, I disagree with you, and here's why. I mean, to be able to, and I'm not picking on Tony on purpose, but I mean,
People disagree with him sometimes. I don't know anybody.
you don't know any. Amy.
Amy doesn't.
So I think, so I hear what you're saying, because it is, I do have to tell you that, just from the scuttlebutt I've heard, the reason Alan Salazar is pushing for timing and all of this to get it done is that there is a lot of interest of people outside. I mean, I've heard some names like, huh? You know, but because it's a big authority board.
Who's Alan Salazar? I don't.
I'm sorry, he's the mayor's chief of staff.
Oh,
And this is really being run at the highest levels of the mayor's office, so.
So, kind of as a harmony note with what you just said, the other hope that I have for whoever surfaces for this is that they understand and that there's 10,000 people in these three neighborhoods, roughly. And that we have the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee. And the individual, in the case of, you know, everybody, but people don't get to go there with their personal agendas. I'm saying that as strongly as I can say it. And this does concern me because I sometimes feel like I'm on a chessboard with all of this stuff going on. When the majority of my time is talking with people that are not engaged, but are aware, but don't understand what's going on, and are not represented in any of the conversations, almost anywhere. And because they're afraid almost to have opinions, because it's so hard to get reality checks, because there's these residents over here, there's these residents over here, and I want to be very careful about saying people that are existing leaders. I almost I want this to be a mentorship. I want there to be board development. There may be people that have been around, that have like we say, the institutional memory of the neighborhoods. I don't know who could possibly serve us, but the Center Advisory Committee is entering into an arena now where I think we're having to revisit our whole process, take it to some kind of for lack of a better word, maturity of some sort. And we have not had a clear consensus process. We have not had, in my estimation, a good loop going forward. We had the committees and the subcommittees things as far as consensus, asking the people that were on the committees to represent this. It's been very sort of fuzzy. So I somehow want that to be part of the criteria that is used to evaluate the candidates. And I'm wondering if that's a more general way to say it than that the candidate has to be this, that, or the other thing.
John, I think, let me just respond. I think we can talk about some language that applies to that. I think it applies to everybody. Okay? I mean, even National Western CSU, the bottom line is at some point, there will be times when there may be interests that they have that they're going to have to decide that it's for the greater good, right? And that may at times mean that National Western may not get everything 100% at once, or vice versa. I mean, to be able to do that. So I think there is a way, but I think that's more of a category that applies to all the members of the board.
Which then is fine, because why not be that expansive?
Right.
I mean, because that's part of what
It should
we
apply to all the members of the board.
with getting the commitment from the mayor to generalize what we're putting into the rest of the board.
Right.
But, yeah.
John, go ahead, Michael.
Because I just want to make sure that, we're able to get through all of the different criteria levels, and I would like to kind of pivot and recap what we have here thus far and see if they're amongst the folks here, if this is, because we should start narrowing down, and what I got here was one, the emphasis on neighborhood status and record of community involvement, but how do we begin to take this maybe 12, 13 to maybe 7 or 8?
Do we have to do that? I mean,
Or do you want to take, or you guys can, you can take the whole list, but
I think what we want to do, Michael, I think what we'd like to do before we start narrowing is, I think not to maybe consolidate this a little bit, but I think we need to put it out to the balance of the committee
okay.
for more input, just because we don't have a lot of members here. And then I think we do exactly, because I think it ought to probably, for presentation purposes, there are probably some very broad categories that we could put this in to make it read. But I think I think you guys have done a great job.
What about John? What
This is
did
good.
John.
you say?
Well, I think everybody had some good input in this. I want to look at it from a different point of view. Why are we here? Let's not forget why we're here. And if we then can, the silhouette, whoever, the two appointees, obviously residents, that's going to speak for itself, apply a little bit of everybody's input as to how that would blend into the silhouette, as to what we want. Based on what we've done and where we've come from, nothing. So it's a reflection of what we've already accomplished. We have come together, a lot of us not knowing each other, but we've had enough confidence to go forward. And if we take a little bit of everybody's say-so as to the criteria they put in and blend that, obviously we'll come out with something that will be contributing to what we've accomplished here today.
Go ahead.
So on that point, John, I was going to ask, what is the representative's relationship to this committee, to this CAC?
A marriage. I would
think
say it's
that
absolute
A
marriage.
shotgun wedding or?
I like
Is it,
I like Nikki's idea.
We're bound to this group forever. And if people can't accept that and don't want to be a part of it, they have no business here.
But
You know.
John, what I mean is this person, shouldn't we, I mean, I don't know if we want to start writing their job description or their requirements.
No.
But shouldn't they report to this committee? I mean.
I would think you owe this committee
And I don't know how
everything.
I don't know how you require it, but that they listen to this group because.
I
you're
liked
talking about the
Mickey's
work, but-
idea of potentially thinking about making the committee member an ex officio member of this committee and making him be
Yeah,
part of the
it's-
committee at
You
some point.
know, I'm gonna jump in on that. If you're gonna do that for your community representative only, this is the committee of National Western. It's not a community committee, it's set up by National Western.
It's the National Western Center.
Right.
This is authority,
Talking about
this is
the
the authority for the
Fed.
National Western Center.
Well, it wasn't to begin with.
The authority is the
Anyway,
National Western Center
The
authority.
point is, why put that burden on just
No,
your
I
community
think
representative?
I think if you go back to the framework document, there is a section in the framework document, I'm sorry, the pages escape me, but I can recite some pages, but not others. Yeah, but that the authority needs to decide what it needs to do. This could become the committee for the authority.
It could,
And they
but
have, and
it's
it's
not
very,
today.
it's not today, but I think what I'm hearing, everybody's sort of thinking through, if we do the work we need to do, why would the authority do anything but, right? To be able to do that. But, I mean, my gut tells me that I think them starting a brand-new committee would not be their preference.
So, but I would think you wouldn't want to limit the authorities board and require the community representative. I think it diminishes it to communicate with this committee. I think that's going to be a responsibility of that board, all of them.
Yeah, it's not that community person. It's
It's,
everybody.
right,
It's
Yeah.
everybody.
right. I don't think you
Yeah.
want to just
But-
place that on the
but
community.
let's not forget,
person.
let's not
That's
forget,
the authority's
what we're talking about
responsibility.
is a product of this group. If it wouldn't be for this group, who knows where the National Western Center might not be here, I don't know.
But all the more reason to have the members on that authority board know what is going on here, because this is so critical. And like the mayor said, it is the bringing together of the communities, integrating with the National Western Center, of which CSU and the MOU partners are a part of. But that really would diminish, I think, to have one person, to have the resident, to be the educator of that 11-person board is an unfair burden.
So my
It's an
thought
unfair
is,
burden.
if you had, I think you want communication back and forth. Maybe it would be best if that rotated and a different person on that board
So why don't you-
came to meetings.
Go-
So I think there's just a lot of things, I wouldn't want to limit it in a job description. That's
So
all.
I'm a little bit confused, so I'm just going to say what I understand to be the greatest purpose of the Center Advisory Committee and its potential relativity to this board, because I feel a little bit differently than what I'm hearing. My feeling is, and this is where I feel like we as a Center Advisory Committee have a come to Jesus process here. My feeling is that the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee was founded to work with the National Western Center and so that the Global Larry Swansea neighborhood plans and the National Western Center master plan served the mission with the well-being of the neighborhoods being in the forefront, and that the benefits and the interrelatedness to the National Western Center project nested in the neighborhoods served the best possible opportunities, quality of life, while it had its big international and world missions and all that kind of thing. The National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee, to me, was supposed to have been a loop from within the neighborhoods into the National Western Center project, and a loop back to get as much broad engagement as we could, to have critical thinking, discussion, education engagement, to focus it down into the advisory committee such that it could then go to the MOU partners, and decisions would be made informed by a broad experience and broad population. I can honestly say I feel that, yes, we've done some great stuff with the CAC, it's acknowledged, but I think we've also failed significantly in areas that we can discuss later, the Events Program Advisory Subcommittee, the opportunity for soft programming, ongoing things that I feel that I myself couldn't get responses from even with my peers here. And blame me entirely if you want, but I feel like we are in a consultative relationship with the permanent authority, where to me, the permanent authority would want this to be a sounding board for the possible rollout. Certain things are just, almost mechanical. You have to build this, then you build this, then you build this, and this has to come first, okay? But there are going to be lots of other things that have to do with, like how the project interfaces with the neighborhood physically, how the programs are incremental, what sorts of things, are priorities, what types of opportunities with CSU can we put on the front burner for people that have multi-generational relationships. So I really feel like it's not up to one person anywhere, but to me, these members on the board are more facilitative of the bringing together of as much knowledge of the experience of the many people in the neighborhoods onto that board, and there will be some consensus or decisions that come out of the Center Advisory Committee. And somehow they ought to be honored on this board, and that could be, I don't know if the criteria, I don't know how you do that exactly. I mean, if you, because I'm not quite sure how to do that, because you could have an individual from the representatives here that could be very sophisticated at talking to the other board members to try and get agreement on something that they then wanted to bring to the CAC and go back. But, that's, so I just want to say, just within that is a dynamic of what I think the relationship should be.
We're standing up a brand new authority that has a substantial amount of power in a 100-page document that City Council approved unanimously, whatever. We're all, to some extent, making it up as we go along right now. And we have to go forward to it. Well, Susan, I appreciate that. I think there's all kinds of themes and variations to that. I don't want to get distracted. We got to get back to doing criteria on the other board members, because other board members, we've spent an enormous amount of time on the GES board member and the resident board member, but there are 6 other people who, by the way, could outvote everybody else, okay, that are the members of the city and county of Denver, that the mayor has no, one of them will be the chairman, which the mayor will appoint, okay, at least for the first 5 years. That was a very hard-fought issue between CSU, National Western, and City. We didn't like that, quite candidly. We thought the board should elect the chairman. The mayor said no, because he's in a build mode. So we compromised
He's in
a build mode, because he has to deliver. So the way Gretchen will describe this, her client is now the authority. She's building these buildings to turn it over to the authority, and the authority will ultimately program, but programming all sits in the authority, right? So we went through that. So I think that we also need to get through the criteria for those people, at least your thoughts are, because that's also pretty important too. I mean, I think what you guys have done on this one, I think it's great brainstorming. I think we can organize a little bit, but send it out as a draft so people, because the more you think about this, the more you learn about this, you'll come back in 2 days and you'll have new ideas and new thought processes. We've been doing that to some extent, but it's really good. But I think we also need to focus on the other board members. And Armando?
Let me ask you, what criteria is the mayor using to select the board?
Michael, I don't want to respond for the mayor, but let me tell you what Alan has told us. They are looking for skill sets that are needed in this authority.
So
Right.
builders, developers?
No, just builders and developers. For example, let me give you an example. Finance is really a big important.
People who,
Is there somebody who understands, who particularly thinks outside of the box of the financing world? If in fact, in order to fix this, finish everything, if we have to enter into a public-private partnership, do you want somebody on the authority who has had experience, who would never be party to it because they'd be conflicted out, he or she, okay, be able to do that? Do you want international? Do you want someone who, to Mickey's point, do you want someone who has a resume of understanding how to do projects and create place of this magnitude who have an international appeal, who could actually be able to do that. I think that's what Alan has told me, which is they're looking for diversity of view and opinion, okay? And who are the people who they really need in order to make this happen, and what they need at the table. Is that a fair
That's
statement,
pretty
Michael?
consistent. And someone who has operational experience running large venues like this.
One additional comment, because the way the authority's set up, and I wish Johnson was still here, it's based on a corporate model. Let's get real here. Who contributes the most gets the most seats. We don't, in his view, we're the community, so we don't, he thinks we don't bring that much to the table, so therefore we're gonna get one vote and one non-vote, which to me is really irrelevant. Well, it is relevant, but the point is, we bring a lot to the table. So is his authority going to be based on, yeah, I'm giving 2 to CSU, 2 to City County Denver, 2 to National Western? Is he looking at configuration of somebody with those backgrounds, but also with the skill sets you guys talked about to complement to run out this authority?
Well, I
I'm
think,
just trying to get a feel for.
yeah, were you here when I already said, the Board of Governors of CSU and National Western have already agreed who their members are. So those are set,
Yeah.
okay? Those are the first
Yeah,
4.
those-
Right.
But, I mean, he might, still, the mayor might still pull some people from a lot of those backgrounds. Just to
I
complement.
think that, I actually think they're having some big, hard discussions. I think that you don't want to, I think that is, from what Alan has told me, they have to worry a lot about conflicts of interest. You can't appoint, I mean, these all have to be confirmed by city council. If all of a sudden you start pulling from membership of the National Western, well, then the National Western has more than,
Right.
Well, I would like to see Michael Sapp myself.
so, you cannot have, the document is very, very precise. You cannot have elected officials, and you cannot have employees of the city and county of Denver.
So I'm concerned, with this financial, operational, I mean, that's how the city runs now. They don't look at human values. And I think we need somebody who understands.
So let's put it on there.
Let's put that on the
Huh?
criteria.
Let's put it on there.
That should be, that's what I'm saying. It needs to be a
Could you
criteria.
could you talk a little bit more about that, Vicki?
Huh?
Could you talk a little more about that?
Okay, I'm
so I can
talking
write
about-
something down?
About looking at the values of this community, things like education, things like the image of this community, the things, the connections to in this community. Health, all of those kind of things. Those are the things that have been overlooked for 100 years because the economics of the rest of the city is more important than what's happening here. So we need somebody. Hopefully we have one representative here, or 2, at least one voting member who can express those things. But we need someone else on who the mayor appoints. And my concern is the mayor hasn't really embraced that kind of person or that kind of set of values. And I would like him to basically take another look and see if we can if he will appoint somebody who has those kind of interests and values that really are critical to this community.
I'd like to give an example of what Vicki's talking about. We all know that 80216 is the most polluted zip code in America. It'd be nice if you would bring somebody on this board, authoritative board, that would want to change that stigmatism, not stigmatism, it's a fact, change that to being one of the nicest zip code in America as opposed to being the most polluted. If you could bring somebody with that flavor and foresight and vision to help us turn this community around, that would be great. In fact, that's what we need.
Yeah, I think part of that is this has always been a brown community. It's the industrial community. But you look around, we have the rivers, we have lots of parks, we have Heron Pond. This can be the greenest community instead of the brownest community. We need somebody who can think in those kind of terms.
I think those are all very legitimate criteria you ought to put in to consideration. So,
Yeah, John.
Now, go ahead, Dave.
Do we have to have 2 residents? Can it be 1 businessman and?
We're talking about this.
we're talking about the 6 now. Yeah, the framework agreement says residents for both.
But one of the 6, you could say, of the other 6 appointments, 1 should be a business person.
Yeah,
From
there's
this
nothing
community.
prohibiting
And
the
push
mayor of
that.
Denver from appointing somebody who's a business person in this neighborhood to his other 6.
These are the representatives you were referring to as at large.
That's what I call the at-large.
Yeah, so these are the additional 6.
You might also want to also think about a specific criteria for the chair. The chair will probably be the first appointment the mayor makes.
And is that appointed from his 6?
No,
It's
that,
an
it's
additional
appointed from
person.
whoever. It's,
It's a
he picks the
non-voting-
chair.
it's
No,
not-
it's a chair,
it's a
no,
voting.
it's a voting
Oh, I
member.
see.
It's the
from
chairman.
11.
The treasurer is the
From-
non-voting member because he's a CFO of the city and county of Denver.
Okay, I missed it. So
So-
from the 11 voting members, the chair is
Along-
appointed.
Along the lines that Mickey was talking about, I feel very strong that the mayor should look at individuals that have knowledge of the area within their discipline, with their expertise in their particular discipline. That should be complemented by some explicit knowledge of the environmental impacts, the health impacts, the transportation impacts, the damn river flooding, you know, we're not out of the water yet, and that's still a potential. But that, out of those 6 appointees, they should have firsthand knowledge of the area they're coming into, complementing whatever discipline, you know, expertise they have.
That's good.
So,
I agree, I think it needs to be applied knowledge. Sure, you can be knowledgeable and all this stuff, but if you don't apply it, what good is it?
Right.
You know, it has to be somebody that you can apply. Sure, I got all this, I got this knowledge garden, I know all this stuff. Okay, how did you apply it? How did you make a difference in whatever other background you ever had, or whatever you did in this authority? What do you bring to the table that's gonna be a game changer here?
True.
Applied knowledge, not just knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah, so I really like what Mickey said about a person's values, I think a person's work, what they've done, shows what their values are. And so if they have a record of lifting up, improving communities, lifting up, you know, I love the idea of changing the most polluted zip code into the greenest zip code. If they have a vision for that and how to do that, and how to bring the neighborhood along with it, you know, that would be a good one.
And that's easy, Drew,
so-
easy, because an environmental plan, they hold into paper too. That's an easy one to solve.
Well, I'm not sure the
But
environmental
you don't have
is
anybody
to
here
solve.
that's willing to take that on.
But the other thing that I think of in finding out what their work is also I really would like transparency and openness. I think that they should not be, you know, hiding something, what their interests are. And so I think they should disclose what their interests are. I mean, I'll just throw out there, we have a president who never showed us his tax returns. We don't even know, you know. So if they can't really disclose what their work is and their interests are, I mean, that should be public. But I think values is really maybe the key criteria. What are their values? Are they in it to just enlarge, to make their friends richer? I mean, or are they in it to really see these communities lift up?
Maybe you'll want to have the mayor ask if they have worked with communities, with diverse communities, and what their experience in that area, and if they've been successful listening to community input, and see if they can demonstrate those.
A record.
So I think the last several comments all are reinforced by the fact that the mission of the National Western Center, and it is being structured programmatically into some of the net zero stuff and, you know, the rejuvenation. I think if we can, this is an authority for the National Western Center to unfold, and all of the neighborhoods can benefit from those values that are supposed to be part of this project. It doesn't stop at the border of the National Western Center footprint.
That's very articulate.
And so, to me, that's a big obligation of everybody on that board, is to extend the benefits of the National Western Center into adjacent GES neighborhoods. And we have memorialized in a memo from Mayor Hancock that he will make it part of the board development to be able to get oriented and immersed in the GES neighborhood
Yeah.
realities and
My
history.
suggestion, the first thing when the authority gets named and convened is that the infamous tour that we did, what,
Well,
3
that's
years
on the
ago?
table, but the
Sorry.
more important thing I'm trying to put on the table here is that we have in writing, in the mayor's voice, as a result of our input into the framework, that the board orientation is going to require
Right,
everybody that comes in, if they, because there was some resistance to it being a litmus test that people have the GES awareness. And there was some discussion behind the scenes on that, and a remedy for that is very intensive board orientation and development, with that being a value that's brought in.
I think one of the first things we mentioned in terms of our representative was time. And I think the mayor has to find somebody who has the time. It's real easy to find some person who is so busy and has so much going, and he's very prominent but doesn't have, you know, a day to take off to meet with a group like this and actually find out what we're thinking. So I think that he needs to ask people, do you have time? Do you really
I
have
think that's right.
I don't think a job description is a bad idea.
I actually think,
And
I think actually putting that in, that there ought to be a job description
That's what I was just-
developed for the board, chairman
And
and
I
the...
think the estimated time commitment can be put right in there, and I think that's, I would expect there to be a job description in a board of this.
I mean, the first thing this board has to do is to hire a CEO to run the
So can we
authority.
ask the mayor to come up with a very specific job description that includes expected time? There's some hints at it in the framework for all of the board members. That is a form of transparency.
Right. I apologize for having to leave. I have a little emergency that I have to deal with, but you guys keep going. This has been terrific. I think what we'll do, we'll keep going. Liz and Michael's going to help out here. Keep going at this, and then what we will do is send it back out, and we'll resend the mayor's letter so everybody know they have it one more time. I know you guys have seen it, but we'll see it, again, so that you do it and get back input. Because my experience in this, because we've talked about it the last week or so, is the more you think about it, the more you'll come up with additional criteria. So this is terrific. I'm sorry, and then you've got stuff about.
Yep.
I just want to forewarn you that the meeting on the 26th has got a jam-packed agenda. We'll try to get you an agenda as quickly as possible. All right.
So, do we have some more comments? I've divided this, what I'd like to do quickly, let's keep going if there are some more ideas for what we're calling the at-large member, the qualities we want to see of everybody on the board. And let's see, let's just take a quick look at those. Demonstrates that they value the values of the GS community. And, we're going to wordsmith these, obviously. Education, health, connections, committed to turning the community around. A business person from GDS, somebody talked about. A specific skill set is complemented with knowledge of GDS and the issues. A record of improving the community, bringing GDS from non-polluted to green. Transparency and openness, disclosing their interests and work. Values, are they in it to see the communities lifted up? Understands and is committed to honoring the mission of the National Western Center, and then extends it into the GDS neighborhoods. Has time to commit to the authority, has time to reach out into the community, and commit to a job description including a time limit. So are there some things you want to change or fix?
I would like to add, if I may.
Yep.
Somebody who really has the experience and the ability to relate to and work across different socioeconomic, educational levels.
Okay.
And education as well.
Socioeconomic, educational levels and cultural.
And cultural, yes.
Education, cultural levels.
Okay.
Liz, on that, turn the community around, can we be explicit in that? We're able to change, from being the most, to the most green friendly, or however you want to say it. Because that, turn the community around, just Laura already doing that because we're bringing a new facility. Well, no, that's not what we want. That is what we want, but, we want something else better than that. Because we want to be known for not being the most polluted neighborhood in the United States.
You know what? I think on Armando's point, if they really take the values and the mission statement, that we came up with way back, if they really take that to heart, if that really, I was looking for it, I don't have it in front of me, but that they
Should be in the
really,
executive summary, if that's it.
yeah, it might be in the executive.
How about
That's
just
what I'm
commitment to
saying.
the mission statement?
Yeah, commitment to the mission statement.
Yeah, that's the generalization.
All right.
That's the foundation.
Or dedication to, or, understands and is committed, or dedicated to,
Okay. All right, other things for the general population?
Well, I'm making the assumption that this is going to be a well-mixed board racially, gender, and age-wise. I'm making that assumption. I don't know if we should assume that, but I don't want to put a litmus test on it. But I'm making the assumption that it's mixed, it's probably demographically mixed, however you want to put that.
How about,
diversity.
how about diversity
Yeah, we
in
don't
all,
say inclusive diversity,
inclusive diversity? Inclusive and diverse, or?
inclusive diversity.
Okay,
I'd go with inclusive diversity.
inclusive diversity. In membership. Okay,
Now, Liz,
yes,
is this the time to bring, I think that anybody that's elected to the board should have a background check done on.
okay.
Well, what do you mean by that? Because I think that there's a standard of, and I'm asking sincerely, I'm just kind of, I think that there is a standard set of values for any permanent authority that the authority will have as far as criteria that would qualify people for the job. Then there's the,
Criminal background check.
okay, so, which is fine, but I want to, with criminal background checks, I want to say that I think that there are a lot of people that may have criminal backgrounds in some arenas that would not disqualify them from being incredible members of the board, just like, I like to open it up for discussion. I'd like to get, I don't know how to get specific with something like that.
Maybe like integrity. I mean, just that the person has, the person in their character, they're basically, this is a soft thing, I don't know how you measure it, but they don't have a record of doing shady deals or.
There's actually,
I would think the mayor would do that anyway.
Yeah, I think there's a standard.
just so you know, in the framework agreement, there is actually a phrase that covers that, because that discussion happened among the partners. And I believe it may be in the membership section already that talks about, I just remember it was, if you go to the membership of the board, there is a phrase in there somewhere that kind of addresses the issue without using the phrase criminal background check or, oh, you know where they used it? And maybe we just could recycle it if and you can think about it. They used it in the naming rights section about not issuing a naming right to somebody that
It's shady.
was shady.
I don't know, that's not a
They
legal word.
had good wording there,
But
yeah.
they had some wording that,
High integrity problem.
I think assessing the integrity is a fine way to go about it, because that allows an open conversation around the values of the organization. I'm out, right now, I'm advocating a lot for people that are felons to realize that they get to vote in Colorado, for example, right now. I'm very.
But that's different.
No,
Voting and being on the board
Drew,
is
excuse me,
different.
let me make the connection so that people understand what I'm saying. It's very much the same thing. Because I wouldn't want, just because somebody was a felon, I wouldn't want them to be disqualified from this board. And if you make a blanket statement, it is a bias. It is exactly what we're talking about. So I think that the board can just, if it's a child molester or pedophile, that's something else. So it may or may not be obvious, but I think it's something to think about because we're dealing with pre-K through 12 education in this project. I don't want to generalize about a class of people. And I want to be very careful about that. So I think having an integrity measure is is wonderful. There are people that have declared bankruptcy that would not qualify for some things, but they might be fantastic members of the board, for example.
No, I mean, Pat
excuse me.
Boland declared bankruptcy 4 times, and we built a
Okay.
stadium for him. So
Yeah,
I don't know where
okay.
you're going.
Okay, well, but no, Drew, please, excuse me, don't interrupt. Let me just keep the focus here. What I'm saying is that I'm certain that there are standards in the city that have to do, and it would be good to know.
I think you hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah. And then we can build on that
I'm
by
sure-
saying we want some definition of integrity.
I'm sure the mayor has his set vetting process.
So I think and I like all the points that were made. But I think if we could take the statement that was used in the naming agreement, and maybe we find that and put that out, and then, we can send that out to the group, refine it, and then we come back on the 26th and see. Because I think it's great points that he's making. I mean, Dave, I hear what you're saying as well, but let's just continue the dialogue. But let's explore the language that's used for naming rights, and maybe that could protect population of folks, but also protect the future investments, the education, et cetera, that will come on.
Yeah. Okay, so I put remember, this is our first cut at this.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna put that in there, and then people will be able to come back and comment and, give us their impressions, and then we'll get to discuss this some more. So,
I think someone who's had collaborative experience and who's had some success in terms of creating place or creating a new venture. I mean, we haven't talked about that at all.
Right.
Yep, we know, be a good one.
And it should be like recent, in other words, not something somebody did 20, 30 years ago, something. It should be, that fits in this era of time also, yeah.
I mean, related to that, I think, is vision, that they have a vision of what the potential of this place could be.
Okay. And I was just trying to put in the word recent experience. Okay. What else?
I'd rather, recent demonstrable, there's some pretty amazing human beings that may come out of retirement. If you say I would,
How about
what is
use
recent?
like,
Demonstrable would be, if you can demonstrate it relevant to the
how
skill
about,
set.
how about innovation or something like that, or, no? I'll look at the word demonstrable.
This is, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, this is kind of obvious, and I don't think the mayor would pick something like that, but I think you should not have someone who's like a divisive character. I mean, that's kind of an obvious
But
thing.
we put it in the positive, saying
Is it
collaborative.
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 Yeah,
They work-
that's the cure for that.
Yeah.
And
Would these people that we're looking at here have to submit some type of resume or something to that aspect? And I think, that answers a lot of the questions and really shows you the integrity of these people, because we're not asking for people that are just going to be lasting through town here to be on this board. We're asking for people that are pillars of the community, that have a substantial resume and background, which goes back 20, 30 years or a career. And so when you have that coming into play here, I think their resume in itself and their past record is going to speak for itself.
So one thing that I will do when I send this out is, there is an online, there is a like kind of a basic application plus any additional information when you're applying to be on an authority.
Yeah.
And so what it is it's like a basic, you provide all this information, you provide a resume, and then I'm guessing that there's also an addendum, and I haven't had time to look, but I will provide a link to that so you guys can take a look at what they're asking for already. from these candidates.
Cool.
And that way we'll have that as a basis, and that'll help us to kind of, is there something that we don't see on that list that we think is really important?
In
So-
tandem to that, what is the, who are the people that talk to these people that make the selection? I mean, he has a chief of staff,
Yes.
but is there an additional group of people that consults, I mean, I know in the end the mayor says this is what I want to do, but is there, how does that work?
Well, I mean, yeah, it would be the chief of staff, it would be Gretchen Holler as the current executive director, equity partners.
Okay. So there'll be.
This right now in the interim, but as the applications get submitted, I don't know what the direction the mayor will go as far as who will actually be vetting the different applications.
Well, when they hire, they have a matrix and all this and that and the other thing, when the city hires all these various jillions of dollars of consultants, and you can find what the criteria is in some regard, in terms of like the interviews and that kind of a thing. So, is that the type of thing that happens in that group? Do they talk about, well, what are we looking for before, or do they have like a set of skills they want to make sure are on the board?
There will be a level of criteria. This won't be similar to how we hire, select contractors.
It's going to be a little more.
This will be a little bit different because it's an outside authority, but there will be criteria that will be in place.
So, and,
See you, Larry.
yeah, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, assuming it's kind of, I think what Liz was saying, so right now when you apply for boards and commissions in the city, you submit your resume, and then they'll ask you questions, like if, on the mobility task force, they'll want to know what your background is in different areas of mobility,
Relative.
and what groups you've belonged to that were related to that, and how, they always ask about your community involvement and other things. So they'll develop a questionnaire, I'm sure, similar to that for this position, but not yet. I think they're waiting for input.
But
To
I think the reason why you make a good question is, and working back on the calendar that, Maria was talking about, for meeting on the 26th and the meeting with the mayors on the 31st, these are things that we can take to the mayor in the interim just to kind of get a flavor of what will make up that body that will look at the criteria for each selection.
And I think
And that's something that we can bring, that you all, not me, but you all can bring to that meeting when you're meeting with the mayor.
And I think a lot of these questions you're asking that can then be turned into questions they will ask.
Interview questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to probably have to get ready to leave in a minute, but
Yeah.
are we going to get to a point to where we're going to be suggesting people?
So if you guys, so that, we kind of got down, we did the sort of stream of consciousness, which I think is great. We did the round robin, we talked about all these things. And so one of the questions is, are there individuals, and do you as a group believe that you want to also submit names? So we've created a list of, well, we're going to, come up with this list of criteria, but are there people that you would like to suggest for not only the GES resident people, but also for the at-large? And is that something that you guys want to do tonight, or do you want to look at the criteria or do you not want to
Well,
submit
here's
people
what
and just
I'm
submit
sort of-
I
criteria?
think
I
we
wanna
should
say
nominate
what-
the whole board, everybody should be a candidate.
That's an idea, that's an
Why
idea. Here's what I've been saying.
Objections.
I've been saying to people, first of all, I think as a courtesy, I myself wouldn't put somebody's name up unless I had spoken to them and said, are you interested? And so basically what I've been saying to people is, why don't you find out what this involves? I think it would be great if you were interested. This link will help to the application. I have just been saying, see if you can talk to the mayor's office or whatever. I would be, if we want to formally recommend somebody from the CAC, that's a complex process. So my feeling is I want everybody who's interested that feels they meet the criteria to get in there and apply, and for us to get real clear about this criteria. And if anybody wants to come to any of us and say, hey, would you support me with a letter to the mayor, or if somebody wants to come that's already decided to apply to ask the CAC for an endorsement, then they can make a presentation. like that. So I mean, that's my state of mind.
That's up to you guys. I wanted to put that out there.
Yeah.
I know some people, and it may not even fit the criteria, but I know these would be excellent people.
Well, I tell them,
And as far as that goes, you know, I throw it out there. You guys may shoot it down, you may not shoot it down. That's up to you to do. But, you know, it's just something that I felt that if you were going to do it, I had a couple people in mind, and we don't have to deal with that tonight.
well, could you ask them if they'd be interested? If they are, could you then say, why don't you come to the CAC and maybe we can get you the support of the CAC?
You know, I would say I'd be really careful because
Okay.
you gotta do, if you're gonna let everybody have that opportunity, all 100 people that are interested, or are you only gonna talk to a few people?
Well, I don't know.
That's,
Think
I
about how this all
just
works.
think those things through before you.
Well, when you're, yeah, I mean, that's,
So I think
I don't
one
know.
of
I
the,
think it's kind of up to the people.
yeah, no, and you make a good point. It's not like, we can come up with a whole list of people here and someone may not be interested. But I would say that between now and the meeting, if you, now that you've sat here and thought about the criteria and thought about your community, and there are people that you think might be good candidates, that it would be good to have a conversation with them. And then we can pose this question and, and see if, is there a CAC member that's interested in doing it? And would they, maybe that's where we limit it, if there are going to be some CAC members that would like the endorsement of the group. But I think we could spend a while talking about that tonight. I'm not sure whether we want to or not. And I'm happy to stay and write along with this with you or not. But what I'm going to do is just take, I'm going to divide it into two sections, the GDS resident and then the at-large member. I'm going to try not to edit these too much because I want the other committee members to take a look at them, as they sort of came from you, and then also submit additional comments. And then I'll resend it out to you once other people that are not here have submitted, or maybe you want to change something, or I didn't quite catch the essence of
And I
something.
see you are recording.
Yes, and I'm recording this. Yep, absolutely.
Just hand the mayor the tape.
There are a lot of folks that are leaving, but I definitely want to talk about the next CAC.
Yeah, sorry. Before you go, Armando, go ahead, Michael.
So,
Pass this out real fast. Sorry.
I know, as you all know, placemaking is kicking off, and a lot of folks here at the table were very instrumental in getting the master plan through. But you all recall Betty Cram Drive being the new gateway that will run through the site. Public Works is actually going to unveil the Betty Cram site at 46 and Humboldt on the 26th, and wanted to give this to you all and ask you guys be there, but also open up to see if there's any thoughts or ideas. We thought about a photo op, but I want to honor the folks who were a part of that and got that here. Are you guys okay with doing an unveiling on the 26th?
Yeah, is there any way to do a special entrance with Betty, to have her in like a wagon pulled by a horse or something?
Well, we thought, so Public Works, they have this machine so it'll be 10 feet tall.
Take her up.
It'll take her up,
Are you serious?
and then she can just go like
She's
this.
consented?
Huh?
She's consented to that?
Yeah, she said yes. She doesn't know about but I just want to know, are you guys okay with that? Is that fair? Okay.
That's cool, Mike.
All right. Yeah.
Michael, see if you can get as many people there, because Betty's just doing it. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you guys.
All right, guys, thank you.
Okay. We'll send that out too, and then.